Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Nudome TV. Today I'm gonna talk about climbing with a bicycle helmet versus a climbing helmet. Okay, first of all, I have to say that I really hate wearing a helmet when I'm climbing, and here I am reviewing helmets today. So let me start with a story. I had a really close encounter with death in Singapore. Um, it happened at Dairy Farm for all you Singaporeans out there. Where else, right? It's our local crag, the one and only, and it's notorious for falling rocks. So one day when I was belaying my partner on top rope, he was climbing on top rope, and he pulled down a rock. You know, it was pretty hefty, like a size of a microwave roughly, and it fell about 3 feet from where I was standing, from where I was belaying him. So thank God I was belaying him on top rope, because as you know, with top rope you tend to stand a bit further away from the wall. If I had been belaying him on lead, I would have stood right below him, you know, where the rock actually fell, and I would have probably died. Or maybe I'll be talking to you from a wheelchair right now. I don't know. I'd rather not find out. And when I share this story with everyone, the first thing they ask is, you know, was I wearing a helmet? And the answer is yes, I was. But would I have died anyway if the rock were to fall on my head? That's where I can't say for sure. Maybe, you know, having a helmet would help absorb enough impact, or maybe, you know, deflect the rock a little bit away from just coming directly down on me. I really don't know. I suspect that maybe, you know, I would still at least be severely injured, you know, maybe even paralyzed. Again, I rather not find out. But the point is, having protection will inevitably minimize danger like that when shit happens. And the helmet's primary function is to keep both you and I alive. So today we have two helmets that I'm gonna talk about: the Catlike Misino bicycle helmet here, and the Petzl Sirocco climbing helmet. I got this from Ishii Sports in Osaka. I've had this for about 2 months now, and I'll just do a quick unboxing here. Just jumping back to the Catlike Misino helmet here. It's made in Spain. I watched the video of how it was constructed. It was pretty painstaking and laborious, I think, which results in this really cool design. Without a doubt, this is one of the most recognizable helmet in the professional peloton in the years following its launch, worn by the Movistar team. And what I love most about this sort of Gaudi-esque air vents, is that they provide a 10 out of 10 airflow, which I really one of the primary reasons why I chose to get this helmet back then. It's super lightweight as well, weighing in at only 230 grams. It's been around since 2013, I believe, and despite that, you know, after 10 years, if you look at it, I think it still looked like it could have just been launched just yesterday. I know it has this very organic, nature-inspired kind of design, and I think it really kicks ass. Petzl Sirocco here has been revised a couple of times since its release in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. And this is the 2024 version. It is the world's lightest climbing helmet, size M/L here. It weighs just 170 grams. It's really impressive. But both, you know, the Petzl Sirocco and the Catlike Misino here, they are superbly comfortable. There's no pressure point whatsoever, you know, that I've encountered with the other helmet brands, you know, when I've tested those. Obviously, everyone's head is shaped differently, but just reading off the comments online, watching reviews, this seems to be the consistent feedback, you know, the verdict for both these helmets when it comes to comfort. Amazingly comfortable. And it's true, you know, I've been wearing this for 2 months. Sometimes you forget it's even there on your head. But let's talk about the key danger when it comes to climbing, because I think that determines the main factor when you're comparing a climbing helmet to a bicycle helmet. I've seen a friend's helmet actually split into half when he took a really bad fall. You know, it whipped him backwards into the wall. He had to undergo a serious surgery for his back, but fortunately he's recovered okay now. I think when you fall with your feet behind the rope, you'll almost always flip backwards. That's like the worst possible way to fall, and what it does is that it causes you to sometimes hit your back or your head into the wall, like in a swinging motion. To me, that's like the highest probability of head injury when it comes to climbing. Of course, you know, unless you're that guy that, you know, you're just happy to belay your friends all day, you know, and go for a beer, then yes, the probability of a head injury for you would ultimately come from falling rocks. We'll circle back to falling rocks a bit later. So the key priority when climbing is to have impact protection for the head. And how does a bicycle helmet compare to a climbing helmet when it comes to impact protection? I think that's the main question. Cycling tests usually involve higher impact velocities, meaning, you know, getting a hit to the head at higher speeds. Naturally, because bikes do travel up to really high speeds. I remember, you know, reaching up to 55 kilometers per hour, or roughly about 35 miles per hour cycling in Singapore. Professionals, you know, in like Tour de France, they reach speeds of up to 80 kilometers per hour, or about 50 miles per hour. So I think it's pretty obvious that bicycle helmets are made for super high speed crashes. Now, climbing. What is the speed of a human free falling? Say you take a 20 feet whipper, and I had ChatGPT here just do a rough calculation or rough, you know, estimation. The speed of a human free falling from a 20 feet fall is about 40 kilometers per hour or 25 miles per hour roughly. But that's only about half the speed of what a bicycle crash could be. So 50% of speed achievable on a bicycle. So I think that's why climbing tests typically involve much lower velocities. The US requirement for bicycle helmets is 300 grams of force to a single impact. The Cat-Like Mizuno here is able to withstand 300 grams of force, not, you know, from not just one but 4 impacts to the same point. That's the result that came off the tests done on the Cat-Like Mizuno, which is really impressive. And climbing helmets like the Petzl Sirocco, they are subjected to impacts carried out using strikers weighing 5 kg. There's a hemispherical striker, which is, you know, like a rounder shape. It's dropped from 2 meters high. And they also use a flat striker, which is dropped at the front, the rear, and the sides from a height of about 50 centimeters. And in all of these cases, the transmitted force to the head cannot exceed 10 kilonewtons for the European CE standard, and 8 kilonewtons, which is you know, a bit stricter, for the UIAA or International Climbing and Mountaineering Federation standards. Obviously, the Sirocco here has passed both those requirements, which is again very impressive. The difference between how the bike and the climbing helmets were tested and measured, it's hard to come to a conclusive comparison on which is superior when it comes to impact protection. But I dare say logically, and I'm, you know, generalizing here, I say that most bike helmets are able to withstand a much stronger impact due to, you know, the insanely high speeds that, you know, cyclists can achieve. And not to mention getting hit by an oncoming vehicle, you know, a car, a truck, and those guys are also traveling at really, really high speeds. So again, there is no one way to tell which is superior when it comes to impact protection, but I'd go with the bicycle helmet. The climbing helmet does provide one added protection that the cycling helmet doesn't, and that is protection from penetration. Penetration from sharp objects. Presumably falling rock shards. The Petzl Sirocco meets both the EN 12492 and EN 397 standards. So in both these tests, basically what is done is that a 3 kilogram striker is dropped from a height of 1 meter, which is 100 centimeters, and it mustn't get into contact with the head within the helmet. So it mustn't penetrate the helmet itself. Without the risk of falling rocks, bicycle helmets like the Mixino here can prioritize other benefits, for riding, such as maximum airflow, which is why climbing in summer with this was absolutely amazing. Because I think while the Sirocco is quite airy, I don't think that it compares to the Mixino when it comes to releasing the heat from the head in crazy summer temperatures. Because look, if you can't keep your head cool and you're not thinking straight, you might, make bad decisions, especially on a multi-pitch. For example, I was in Mexico, it was baking hot there. I remember times where, plus the fatigue, plus the heat, I think that's way more dangerous than any falling rock, to you and your partner. So in conclusion, should you climb with a bicycle helmet that you already have? I say yes, if you cannot afford a climbing helmet. I'd even dare say that a superior bike helmet would outperform a cheap-ass climbing helmet. So, practice logic, do what's best in any given situation. And of course, if money isn't an issue, do grab something like the Sirocco. Links are in the description as always. Now that I have both dedicated helmets for cycling and climbing, I'd say the only time I'd still wear a cycling helmet like my Mixino over here, over the Sirocco, is during the peak of summer, where I'd be very tempted to climb without any helmet at all. I'm relying on the Mixino's excellent ventilation to keep my head cool, to keep me focused, which translates to better decisions on the rock and an overall safer climbing experience. If someone is making fun of you for wearing a bicycle helmet at a crack, stick to your guns. You know the facts. Cycling helmet is better than nothing at all. Be proud of that, and if you can afford it, do get a climbing helmet as well. And you won't go wrong with the Sirocco because it is the world's lightest climbing helmet. Thanks for watching, and remember to like and subscribe if you find this video useful. I'm going to be creating a lot more climbing content moving forward because climbing is a huge part of my life and I have a lot of interesting topics lined up. Climb safe, cycle safe, and happy holidays. See you in the next one.